Good evening. Today's a bit of a break from the usual. In fact, maybe it's the start of something new. So basically what I'm going to be doing before my regular Ultimate Guide web class for my subscribers in the Tailored Tutors Academy is going to be just doing half an hour on YouTube, doing some questions, very similar to my regular web class. I'll just take drop-in questions. I'm going to do similar themes to the things I'm going to be doing to my regular web classes. So in fact, I haven't got my YouTube feed up, so I can't see your questions right now, but you can ask me questions in the chat. Let's find the page. Okay, so if you do have any burning questions about A-level biology, I can help you answer those. I'm basically going to do some practical skills. I've got a question lined up about microscopes, so there may be some questions in there. Some of you are probably about to join my regular web class. I'm going to add some of these questions to, probably you're going to see them again in a minute, but you're welcome to do them twice. Doing questions multiple times is really important. Like, you need to practice them because you kind of need to learn what the mark scheme is going to show you. So I'm going to try doing something. I'm using a different bit of software. Normally in my regular web classes, I use Zoom, which is way more responsive. And it's not broadcasting to YouTube, and it's a bit faster. I'm going to be doing it. Well, I'm going to take a mixture of examples today. The question I've got queued up is an AQA question, but I'm going to pick things that are relevant to everybody. I'm not going to go down and start doing things which are only covered by one exam board, because I'll just alienate some people. So, hey to everyone in the chat. I am going to try and screen share now, because this is actually, first of all, I have to open up a different application. It's going to be a bit different to normal because I'm not using Zoom. Yeah, so we'll just do like half an hour or so. So if you do have any crazy A-level biology questions, if you've got a specific practical skills question that is like, give me the year, the exam board, the paper number, the question number, and whether it's the AS paper or the full A-level paper. Predictions. Like, I can tell you there's going to be enzyme questions on there. I can tell you there's going to be a protein shape question on there. I can tell you that all the regular questions that come up every single year will be on there, as they always are. But in terms of picking particular things, there's no real point. I mean, go with the things that come up all the time. The things, if you are going to selectively revise, which is assuming why you're asking me, then revise the things that are most common, the most fundamental bits. In OCR, the module was actually module 2. Module 1 is the practical skills. Module 2 is foundations in biology, and it's in every single paper because it's the foundations, the biological molecules, enzymes, DNA, RNA, protein synthesis. These are the fundamental building blocks behind the application questions. Are going to require you to know most of those things. So in terms of a prediction, it's not a prediction because it will be there. In terms of specific niche topics that may come up one year and not another, there's basically not anything that you can do to predict that. Okay, so let's try this out and see whether this is going to share my iPad or not. Okay. It's amazing how different this camera looks to what you get on YouTube. I don't know what it quite does to oh, it's just jammed. And YouTube's frozen as well. Wonderful. Let's see it. Let's try that again. Let's close all that. I've just got the spinny wheel of death. I don't even know whether you can still see me or not, but let's try that again and see whether we can actually share my iPad screen or not. Okay, second time round. Okay, let's move that down there, and then if the chat is still rolling, then let me know. What about the things when you use new technology? Okay, so you can now see my screen, I'm assuming. Maybe if I stop my video and start it again, sometimes that works. Let's try this. What's going on? Google Hangouts on air. Okay, sweet. Video's back on. And now you should be able to see my iPad as well. Okay, so this is kind of the format I use in my regular web classes. There's a question in here which I'm gonna throw to you. I can zoom in and zoom out. So tell me, depending on what screen size you're on, you might find it a bit small, but don't worry, I can zoom in. Okay, let's have a look at this. This is actually an AQA. This is just so if you're interested, this is AQA paper 3, the full A-level paper 3 from, we call it the 2015s, to be honest. We got access to them in 2015. AQA published 2014 on the front cover. Why, I'm not quite sure. Okay, so what do we want to look at in here? Basically, I'll just find out what question I need to look at. Okay, so we've got, it's question 2 by the looks of things. Okay, here we go. Let's zoom in a little bit. Straight up sort of AO1 factual recall. Describe how you could make a temporary mount. Well, first of all, what's a temporary mount? Like, we need to know. That's like just terminology. It's key terms. What is a temporary mount? So describe how you can make a temporary mount of a piece of plant tissue to observe the position of starch grains in the cells when using an optical or light microscope for 4 marks. So if I'm analyzing this, those of you who have our revision kit, if you want to try, we've actually just launched a massive promotion of our revision kit, so you can test out the revision kit. There's videos of me analyzing all of the new spec questions and then answering all the new spec questions closed book, and then me actually marking my answers. Darshan, that's a great question. I'll let me analyze the question and I'll come back to you in a second. So the command word here is describe. So we have to give a description. It's basically, that means it's assessment objective 1. Just tell me what you know. They're not looking for any analysis here. We need to know what a temporary mount is. Well, this is basically a slide preparation. Of plant tissues, and what are we observing? The position of starch grains. Okay, so how might we see them? So basically, maybe to make that even clearer, the test for starch, question mark. Okay, so now we've kind of got a few of the elements in there already. So Darshan asked me the question, since you teach based on what has been asked before, couldn't the exam ask you something new? Well, Darshan, I'll give you the challenge of doing, let's say, 1,000 past papers. And if all 1,000 past papers are basically a rearrangement, they can only ask you questions on what's on the spec. So that we know. If you do enough past papers, you will see that effectively, what's going on with this camera? Okay, it just takes ages to switch. If you do enough past papers, you will see that occasionally there will be certainly suggest questions on their AO3 application stuff. There might be some deduction things in there that have never come up in that context before, for sure. There will be some small elements of the paper that are unpredictable. My mum taught A-level biology for 40 years, basically. And every year, the biology teaching staff at the school, who all of them were oldies basically at the end of their career, like all 4 of them were I don't know, they'd all been teaching for 30 plus years. Every single year there was some questions on there that they're like, where did they get that from? Like, where is that? I've never seen that in 40 years. So like, yes, there will be, but you don't really need to worry about those, because every single student in the country is going to get them wrong. I tend to get them partly right, partly wrong. I've been doing the past papers here for the last month, just doing all of the new spec past papers for AQA, OCR, and Excel, and filming them closed book. And the highest mark I got was on my final paper, which was a great lesson to you guys. I did 27 papers, basically 1 a day for a month. And my highest mark was on my final paper. I got 91%. And I got anything, my lowest mark was something like, I don't even remember. I probably deleted it from my memory, something like 75. So that was kind of my average was like 80 to 90. I mean, 90 was as high as I got. 80 to 85 was kind of where I was sitting, because there will be those questions, but that doesn't matter. The A-star boundary is about 60, 65%. on previous, as we get better at teaching it, as we get better at learning the old exams, we'll get better at teaching you the new exams. So that's why the grade boundary is going to go up, because I'm going to get better at teaching it to you. I'm going to see the nuances in the question style, and I'm going to make sure that you are well trained for it. So you get a translocation question that's a 4 marker. Couldn't the question be extended for? Absolutely, it can. Yeah, for sure. But if you've done every translocation question ever, then you will know all 6 of those bullet points. That's just there are only, let's say, 6 to, if you see my cheat sheet, there are only like 6 to 8 factual bullet points on any given topic like translocation. You can reel them off right now. There is absolutely, you can learn the mark scheme so that you know, especially with AO1 describe questions like this, you can effectively set yourself up so that you know that that third of the paper, only a third of the paper is on factual recall. The other 2/3 is on the maths, the stats, the application, AO2, AO3 questions. Okay, so yeah, how do you register for today's practical? Well, if you're an Ultimate Guide subscriber, just go to your My Courses page. There is the biology web classes course. There's a full course with all the recordings of all the web classes I've done this year. And if you're an Ultimate Guide subscriber, normally we say you have to register at least 24 hours in advance. I will double check the applications, the registrants if today. We just check that everyone's got an active Ultimate Guide email address, and then we approve you. So I'll do that at 5 to 6, just before the web class starts. So just check your inbox at 6 o'clock and you'll be ready to join us live. Okay. Definitely. I mean, Darshan, there basically aren't any new questions. If you do enough, you'll see that there more or less aren't any new questions. Like 90+% are going to be things that have been examined before. Let's say 10%. But why would you train for the things that you basically can't train for? You may as well train to practice to get really good at the 90% of the things that you can practice. If you want me to do and sort of go through this question, we've already used 13 minutes of my half an hour this evening, and I have to prepare for my Ultimate Guide students. So if you want to do questions, I'm also happy just to like answer your questions. And like Naomi, so you said as a general question, yesterday's check-in, you said there was a girl who you tutor went from an E to an A. I think she went from an E to a B in 4 sessions. She worked incredibly hard, and basically she was capable, but she hadn't been taught it very well, or she'd been neglected by her teachers. I have no idea how someone who was incapable of understanding it didn't understand it, having studied it for 2 years. I started with her probably in the beginning of May, and yeah, I flipped her like, I think it was an E to a B, I think, pretty sure. So what did we do? I did a lot of content stuff, because if you don't understand the content, that AO1 foundation, you can't apply the knowledge if you don't have the knowledge. So if you don't have the knowledge, you're going to need the Ultimate Guide or go pay a tutor to intensively sit down. I went through all of mitosis, meiosis, because she had a massive gaps in her knowledge. I basically filled all the gaps with the first 3 sessions in like 12 hours. And then the 4th session, I was looking at exam technique. Although the way that I teach my students, it always incorporates exam technique. So it's never like one and then the other, but like whether the focus in the first 3 sessions was content, and the focus in the last session was like, okay, these are the structures of the exams, this is where the long questions are, you need to practice these types of questions, like knowing the exam format, knowing how to answer each type of question, knowing what all the command words do, all that kind of stuff. Sharon, is it too late to start revising now? Absolutely not. We had students last year who completed our course in the last week. So in June, they bought the course in June and went up 2 grades. But I mean, it's doable, so it's not too late. But start now. Start absolutely right now, because the sooner you start, you won't be able to cover everything that you've studied so far. It's just not going to happen to cover everything. However, you can cover your weaknesses. You probably don't need to study a good third, half, 3/4, because you know it already, or know it well enough to do reasonably well. What you need to be focusing on are the weaknesses and your skills that you want to be doing. So no, it's never too late to start. Well, what's the other option? That you don't do anything? Like, of course you can improve your grade. You can definitely go, I would say, with the right help, doing the right work, just working, just reading the textbook, just rewriting your notes, just doing all these things that were proven to not work. You could work all day, every day between now and the exams and still not go up a grade. But doing the right work with the right advice and the right coaching, I'd say at least a grade, but 2 grades is definitely doable. Doing the right past papers, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a walk in the park. Do you have enough time to do the majority of the questions? Dandelion, you don't have to do. You have to do the questions you're weak on. Something we train you on in the revision kit is you don't have to do all the questions. You have to find the questions that you're not so hot on, and do those, and then obviously some closed book past papers, which are just going to test you on a bit of everything. You use those closed book past papers to find your weaknesses. Yeah. So then you analyze. So when you do the past paper closed book, that's not the end of that journey. That's the beginning of where that paper is going to be useful to you. You're then going to mark it, and that's useful too. But then you're going to go back and figure out where every single mark that you dropped, why do you drop that mark? Do you drop it because you didn't know it? In which case, you need to go and learn it. Let's go to the ultimate guide, go to your notes, go to whatever you need to do and relearn that topic. Or did you misunderstand the question? So there's lots of reasons why you may not get full marks on a question. As I said, I get about 85% on the questions. I don't beat myself up about the fact that I don't get full marks, because it's basically not possible, in my opinion, to get full marks. The contents is very much the CGP revision guide. Will the revision guide also cover everything for chemistry as well? Yeah, CGPs generally do a pretty decent job. I don't like their style. I don't like their jokes. I don't like the way they lay their pages out. There's lots of things about them I'm not overly a fan on. But of all the books that are out there for the A-level biology spec especially, it covers everything. There's basically nothing that's in the exam. If you had the exam and the CGP book, you'd be able to answer the AO1 content well. The application stuff you have to apply. So if you can't join it might say this is dot 1, this is dot 2, but you still have to connect them. There's basically nothing a book, or that's why you need a teacher to join the dots for you, to help you notice the dots. So definitely I would say, of the books that I've seen, I don't tend to recommend. I just find books quite static. I didn't learn very well from books myself, so I just have a bit of a negative impression of books in general. But yes, if you're going to use a book, they're affordable, they are concise, and they show me an exam question answer that isn't in one. People say they're missing information. I don't really think they're missing information. I think the textbooks are the wrong way around. I think the textbooks have got way too much information. For application questions, can you have a page of writing? How do you manage time? Okay, forget the amount of available space, especially for AQA. I mean, maybe I'll screen share again, and I can show you. Just this paper, just as a demo. Yeah, I can. No, I don't want to do that. I want to share an application window. Okay, so if we're looking at this, if we just zoom out, well, this is a 4-mark question. AQA are now doing this, so they give you this extra space. Well, if I was answering this question in an ideal world, I would write 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 4-mark question. I'd probably write 5 bullet points. Do you want me to just have a crack? Okay, I'll do this. A thing I do with some of my students, again, this is something that's in the revision kit, is answering as concisely as possible. I'm not going to use full sentences here. I'm just going to use shorthand that I know that I could write a full sentence in an exam. So add drops of H2O to slide. Thin. What tissue are we looking at? Any tissue. Thin slice of plant cells, e.g. palisade. What else would you look at? So you'd want then lower cover slip. They either say with a mounting hook is what the mark schemes usually say, or you could say you could say it's more. I would say with a mounting hook. I think they call them a mounting hook. The other option is to say that if this is your slide, that you put your cover slip at an angle, and then you push it down, you let it fall, so that basically you want no bubbles. What else? We'd also want to, in fact, before, I'm wrong, because in here, if I'm just going to slot this in here, you want to say add some potassium iodide. And this is going to turn the starch, is going to go blue-black. You could maybe say squash it, yeah, to make the layer thin. I don't think you could say press firmly on cover slip. Something like that. So in my past papers, I tend to use like really concise, short sentences. In the real exam, you'll see in the revision kit, like I write my exams as if I'm doing a real exam. But I can probably pull up the mark scheme if you give me 1 second, if you find that might be useful. Let's add another page. Okay, I'm just gonna stop my screen share and pull up the mark scheme. Okay, so where's the chat at? I was insert the document, make it not crazy big. Oh, well, there's no background because I forgot to add the background, but we're okay. And it was question number 2. Okay, let's show you and see how close I was. Okay, so look at how concise the mark schemes are. Add a drop of water to the glass slide. Who was it that got that? I saw that was in the chat for sure. Obtain a thin section of plant tissue, place on the slide, stain with iodine or in potassium iodide. Here they state potassium iodide. It's not always that they state it, but just from experience, I know that they often do. And they call it a mounting needle. So now what I would do, I would go back and I called it a mounting hook. I would call it a mounting needle. What do they say? 3, allow appropriate method that, well, that's wrong, isn't it? Look at that. It's just like an error here. That's pertaining to marking point 3, which is actually the potassium iodide. That's actually marking point 3. That's wrong. That should say marking point 4, which is about lowering it with a mounting needle. So there's just a little mistake on the mark scheme there. But it's a specimen paper, and the specimen papers are always not very well checked because no one actually sits them, so they don't really care as much. They don't get in as much trouble if there are mistakes on them, and therefore they don't check them as much. My lighting is crazy in here today. Okay. How long we got? We got 6 minutes. So let me just pull up the chat and see. Okay, your teacher said that if you learn the entire textbook, the highest you get is a B. Well, 2/3 of the content is exams. If you just know the facts, it's not going to be enough to join it together. But if you literally know, the textbooks are terrible. Because to be honest, 2/3 of the textbooks are useful. I'd say about 30% of the textbook is never going to be on the exam. I look at those things. I look at those textbooks. I use them to stack my monitor up now, is what I use the biology textbooks for. I never open them. Like, there's so much in there that's never going to be examined that it just frustrates me. What's my view? So Pabzino, what's my view on the A-level exam writers continue changing the mark scheme for AO1 content, especially the difficult? Well, I mean, only ever 1/3 of the AO1 stuff ever comes up. So when you say changing the mark scheme, do you mean changing the specification, or do you mean that the exams don't have the same content in each year? Okay. Ronnie was showing you the sheet by which the exam progress tracker, where you can read the papers. Where can you access that? And it's in the maths revision kit. I'm sure it is. Might even be the maths ultimate guide. How How is the Ultimate Guide different from other biology revision resources or any users here? Anyone who's a subscriber, I think, should answer that. I have used all my, I'm basically an exam taker. I take the biology exam. I do all the exams way more often than is good for me, but I know just through experience what the exams are likely to ask you. And as a result, I created a course where I teach you the most streamlined amount of, like, I basically cut away every single little bit that is not going to be in the exam, that I know is not going to be exam. I don't teach it to you. I just teach you the stuff that is going to be in the exam, and I teach it to you in the context of the exam. So the way that I built it is I got all the past papers ever, and I went through. So if I was going to teach transcription, basically I would think of all the transcription key terms. Give me some transcription key terms. I'll shout some out because there's a 6-second delay and I'm not going to see them on the screen for ages. Otherwise I'll be standing here forever. But you've got transcription, you've got messenger RNA, you've obviously got RNA polymerase, you've got pre-RNA, you've got splicing, you've got, maybe if you're OCI, you call it mature mRNA, you've got all these different key terms. I'd write down a list of those and I'd search all the past papers and all the mark schemes for all of those key terms. So I then have a list of every single question that has related to transcription somehow, ever. Every single question and every single answer. I then spend like an hour going through all of those and figuring out where are all the answers. And then you start to see the patterns and start joining up. So they either ask this bit about ribosomes, like, and you then put all that together, and I put that on one piece of paper. So instead of just teaching my regular lesson, I teach you the lesson in the context of how the mark schemes will want you to use it in the exam. So I use the words off the mark schemes in my notes, so that you don't have the problem of like, how do I phrase this to get the right words marks? Because I've used the words from the mark scheme in the first place. I'd say that's how my course is different. Try it out. You can go try it for free. See for yourself. Nazra, how do you improve application questions? Practice. Well, you got to know the content quite well in order to link things together, but practice them. Like, do a session, an action hour, where you sit down and just search for suggest and just do all suggest questions. Do all the deduce questions. Depends on your exam board which command words you're going to have. Comment and analyze, comment and explain. Like, they're mostly Edexcel command words, but find the command words that are the AO2, AO3 command words for you, and do a session where you just digitally search through the PDFs and find for those key terms, and then you go through those. How to answer questions on graphs and read, so like investigation skills. Again, isolate 10 of those questions. Spend a session finding 10 questions that you are dreading, that you do not want to come across in the exam. Go find 10 different examples and then do them all in a day on a Saturday. And then mark them all, and then do them all again on the Sunday. And then mark them. Every time closed book. Every single question you do between now and the exam should be closed book. Forget, like, because you'll think, oh, I kind of know that. I'll just check the mark scheme. Oh yeah, I knew that. Yeah, now I'll write that in and I'll like add that to my head. Like, it's not going to do anything for you. It's like zero benefit. What's the point? Like, do it closed book, and then if you didn't get it right, then use your mark schemes to go back and add to your notes. I added mounting needle, right? I wrote mounting hook. And like, I need to, but I did the question. I didn't check before, I checked afterwards. I committed to an answer. Otherwise you fall under what's called the illusion of competence. You think that you know it because it looks familiar, but that's not. Looking familiar, recognizing something and recalling something are different skills. I'm way behind on the chat. At this point, should you be making template notes from the course? Yeah, I mean, the ultimate guide is for teaching you the content. In an ideal world, you know all the content at this point of the year, and now you're using the revision kit or past papers or however you want to do it to tune up your exam skills and tie it all together to do those linking questions, those application questions, the graph questions, the math skills questions, the practical skills questions. Like, that is what this time of year should be used for. Most schools and colleges don't finish teaching until too late. So yes, absolutely. Find your weak topics, then go and use the ultimate guide to like relearn. Because the fact, I mean, I was a student too. I know exactly what it's like. I know that I realistically wouldn't have been well enough prepared at this point of the year as I would have liked to have been. So yeah, that's what the ultimate guide is there for, to teaching you, for like covering those contents. And I don't think there's anything out there that could do it faster. Would the access of information in textbooks help with the application? Almost certainly not. The thing that's going to help you with the application is knowing what you need to know inside out and back to front, so that you can see how I don't know, a mutation in a gene could change a transcription factor, which might switch on another gene or switch off another gene somewhere else, and that might have another impact somewhere else in the behavior of the organism. Or a sensor, maybe it would change the lamellae of the Pacinian corpuscle, and therefore your sensory receptors won't respond to touch as well. I mean, like, biology is a web. It is an absolute interconnected mishmash of everything. So knowing the core content and then practicing the AO2, AO3 questions is the best way of getting better at that. Another thing, flashcards okay, so adding flashcards, that's great. Yeah, flashcards, again, there's a video in the revision kit about how to make and how to use flashcards most efficiently. I've only got like 2 minutes. I have my real web class, and my paid subscribers are starting at 6 o'clock, and I've still got to prepare the web class. I've still got to set up the iPad and all that kind of stuff and switch over to Zoom. So I'm only going to I'll finish at 5:35. I'll give you an extra 5 minutes. How should you approach revision with respect to the previous web class? Darshan, I don't quite understand. The application part is in the textbook and has come up in exams. Aisha, I don't quite follow. Is there a section of the textbook which is focused on the application? Then maybe it depends on which textbook, depends on which exam board. It was about GABA that came up in the textbook. Yeah, I mean, obviously the context, the examples can be useful. I mean, the more questions you do, the more context you see there's different questions in. But if you get a proteins question, it's going to be antibodies, it's going to be a receptor protein, or it's going to be an enzyme. You can swap out variable region for binding site for active site, and the answer is the same. There's so many. Every question, Darshan, basically every type of question. Either there's the question type and there's the question content, and obviously you can mix and match the content with the type, but there's almost infinite combinations of those two different things. But if you know the 10 question types and you know the 50 content types, then it shouldn't really matter how they ask them to you, because you can just like, oh, I know that's one of those types of questions, but this time they're not asking it about mitosis. They're asking me about in the context of, take your pick. There is no too late to start to past papers. The day before the exam would be probably too late to start past papers. Although if you've done nothing up to that point, doing a past paper the day before the exam probably is a decent thing to be doing. But like, if you haven't started, then start. And if you ask me in a week, if you ask me in a month, if you ask me a week before the exam, it is never too late to start. However, the earlier you start, as in today, tonight, tomorrow, the better it depends on. Yeah, I mean, you might get lucky. You could revise for 3 hours. The 3 exact things that you revise come up exactly as AO1 questions. It gives you an extra 6 marks, 8 marks, and you then go up a grade just because of that 3 hours. Chances of that happening, very, very, very slim. But there is no hard and fast rule for this. The better prepared you are, the better you know your subject, the better you're going to. Well, the better you know your exam, the better you're going to do on the exam. It's correlated to how well you know your subject, but to be honest, it's not your content knowledge, it's your exam skills which are going to get you the marks. Perfect, Aisha. Working on weaknesses is exactly where you want to be. Trying to relearn everything is no point in that. You want to find where you're strong and basically use your past papers to like keep them ticking along and not forget about them. But more importantly, know where you're weak, and then that's where you're focusing the bulk of your time on. Okay, now that you've finished watching the videos, how do you go about using past papers and using the previous web classes? Use the past papers in closed book time conditions and mark them, and then find your weaknesses. Which questions did you do worst on? And then figure out, was that because I didn't know the content, or because I didn't know the skill? That's the starting point. If it was the content, that's red flag, go and learn that content. If it was the skill, find other examples of them and do more practice. You just started AS, perfect. Well, we're actually doing a web class on Sunday for AS students and Saturday for year 2 students, year 13 students. We're doing a promotion on the revision kit that we just launched this week. So you've got year 12, you've got no notes, nothing, exam in 3 weeks, not sure what to do. Okay, so I'm leaving. I've already done 1 more minute than I said I was doing my extension. I'll be back next week, 5 o'clock. So we'll be doing our check-ins on Mondays, generic questions between Rich, Ronnie, and myself, all subjects, and then I'll be doing before my real web classes or my paid web classes on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock. Ahmed, I would say try the Ultimate Guide, do the free trial. There's loads of stuff in there. Come back to me next week and tell me how you found it, because people have completed the Ultimate Guide in less than a week and have seen amazing transformations. So again, you're going to have a bit of work to do to complete it in a week, but have a look at the free trial. It's totally free. Go and use the free content this week and come back to me next week, and I'll see you at 5 o'clock on Tuesday. Okay, so is this something you agree with? I'm not going above the content for paper 3, but to understand the content, I think you're answering someone else's question. I think you're answering questions about how awesome my course is. Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll be back next week, and it was a pleasure joining you. Thanks for being here and asking me loads of questions. Yeah, these sessions are just going to be biology specific, no particular exam board. I will probably pick a question and work my way through a question that's going to be a good example question for you guys to have a look at. Plus, you can ask me any of these sort of drop-in questions. Yeah, so see you at 5 o'clock next week, if I can find out where the hang up of this on this Zoom is.